First story. Me and my sister humiliated Dad's new children and girlfriend after they started making racist comments. Now, my dad demands I apologize to his new family. Bear with me. I'll try my very best to keep this as short as possible. My parents split when I was 23 and my sister was 20. They were such a poor match, and I'm surprised they lasted so long, and both of us breathed a bit of a sigh of relief when they split. Everyone was immediately happier, and since then, both of our parents have found new partners. I've always had a good relationship with my dad, albeit a bit of a strained one. My dad is a fair bit less politically correct than I am, and I am hardly PC at all, trust me. He calls things that are stupid, or that he doesn't like gay. He uses the word FG to describe gay people. He thinks Hillary Clinton would be a bad president because she'd nuke everyone on her period. And he laments that he can't use the N-word in public. He's the epitome of an out-of-touch late 50s lily-white guy, is what I'm saying. I love my dad, and while these things bother me, there's literally no changing him, so I have to just bear it when I'm hanging out with him. And an important note is that while my dad says some sexist, homophobic SHT, he never does so in public. At the very least, he knows when to keep his opinions to himself and his family. Recently, my dad's been seeing this woman. Let's call her Iris. Iris has 2 kids as well, 29M and 27F. I don't really know Iris very well. I met her earlier this year at my dad's place, but only very briefly as I was dropping off a few things with my dad. My sisters never met her before, and neither of us has met her kids before. My dad really likes this woman, so he wants all of us, both sets of kids, to get to know each other and the parents so we can all be a blended family. Despite my dad's political incorrectness, he can be adorable sometimes. So Dad invited us all out to dinner. My sister's known to be a bit bristly with strangers, so I told her to be on her best behavior because I want our dad to be happy, and I didn't want to offend Iris or her kids. So we sit down and all start trying to get to know each other. My dad chose a Mexican restaurant to take us out to because it's our whole family's favorite type of restaurant. My mom is Mexican, and growing up we had the most bomb-arse authentic Mexican food all the time. Since my mom and dad split, my dad has been trying to fill the hole my mom's great cooking left in his belly, so to speak, and is a taqueria junkie. Also important to note, me and my sister, despite being half Mexican, have really white skin. We have obviously Mexican features, or at least I think they're obviously Mexican. But everyone always assumes we are of white European descent because of the color of our skin. So we sit down with Iris and her kids, and immediately her kids start complaining. These are grown adults complaining that half of the menu is in Spanish. Next to each thing on the menu was the Spanish name and the English name, and all the descriptions were in English, so it wasn't like an English speaker couldn't read it. I am near fluent in Spanish, and my sister speaks passably, and we're both in school to become English second language teachers, but we try to settle the hair on the backs of our necks and ignore them. We actually managed to have a pleasant conversation with them otherwise, until the waiter comes over to get our drink orders. Iris' son snapped at the waiter like a dog to get his attention and take his order first, and her daughter spoke in a highly condescending voice, very slowly, like this man working at a restaurant that caters to big fat white people couldn't understand damn English. Iris was normal, thank God, but when the waiter, bless his jolly soul, he was so kind despite being treated like an idiot by those two left. Her son remarked that he didn't expect the service to be very good. I don't even know if he could understand us. My dad has been to this place before, so he said, "No, the service here is great. You're going to love this food. I recommend." I can't remember what exactly he recommended. Trying to smooth things over, and then the son says, not like I could understand him either with that god-awful accent, "These people need to learn English if they want to come to America. Probably an illegal or some SHT. Me and my sister are generally nice, kind people, but no one has ever accused us of being patient or suffering fools silently. So, because we're petty, we just gave each other a look and started speaking only in Spanish to one another for the rest of the night. I felt bad because Iris looked mortified, but it felt so good to be so petty for the next hour or so through dinner. We of course switched to English to talk to Iris or her kids, but with each other and my dad, who can understand it, but not speak it. We spoke the most rapid, fluent Spanish we could muster. And at every opportunity, my sister would try to mention that we were Mexicans and had grown up in a Hispanic household with our mom and her extended family. Since then, my dad's been texting and calling us, mostly me, because I'm usually the ringleader of these sorts of things, begging for us to apologize to Iris' kids for embarrassing them. I'm sure my dad didn't know they were going to be so racist towards Mexicans, or else I'm sure he wouldn't have invited them to go out for Mexican food. But I know he doesn't even think what they said was that racist. He said that they could have been worse, and there was no need for you to humiliate them and Iris like that. I agree, Iris was lovely. I should have taken her feelings into account, and I have no problem calling or meeting her to apologize for acting so petty and childish. But damn it, I do not want to apologize to racists for pointing out and not taking their racism sitting down. Is that so wrong? What should I do? Am I just being petty about this too? I don't want to make my dad unhappy, but I know he's not a good judge of what is and isn't racism. And I don't feel like I should apologize for slapping a couple of racist adults down. TLDR, Dad's new girlfriend's kids were racist against Mexicans. They didn't know Sister and I are half Mexican. Sister and I spoke nothing but Spanish to each other for the night to embarrass them. Dad now wants me to apologize to them for embarrassing them. What do? Top comments. Brownus Notfried. Ha ha ha, nice, and don't apologize. Deleted. He said that they could have been worse. Yeah, well, so could you. They're lucky you went with the indirect reminder that they have no idea who might be listening to or offended by their bigotry, rather than calling them out for everyone in the restaurant to hear. Tell Dad and Iris that you realize her children's ignorance doesn't reflect on her, but they should feel embarrassed over what they did, and you think it's best to avoid future family dinners until they understand where they went wrong and apologize to you. Deleted. Apologized. In Spanish. Update. 9 days later. So, I thought I'd come back to update y'all. My sister and I talked about it with our mom, who has always been much calmer than us. She laughed at us speaking nothing but Spanish and said she wished she'd been there to see Iris' kids' faces. She did tell us to just apologize though, because she knows how our dad can hold grudges over tiny things like this. We didn't really want to do that though. So, I contacted Iris and asked if she and I could meet up for coffee and talk about everything that happened. She was super apologetic when we met for coffee and said a lot of her kids' funny ideas come from their bio dad, who is a patriotic Republican. The way she kind of sugarcoated everything about it makes me think maybe she doesn't necessarily think what they did was wrong in general, just that she was sorry my sister and I happen to be part Mexican, and that what they did offended us. Anyway, it was just me and Iris at a Starbucks. My sister wasn't there. She's grown incredibly apathetic to the incident in a very short amount of time. That's just the way she is. And I said I understand everyone's entitled to their opinion, that my dad has some opinions I don't agree with at all too, but that it was rude of them to assume we'd be okay being subjected to their racist remarks, and was embarrassing to be seen with racists. Iris was pretty flustered at the term racists, but I didn't back down. Anyway, she was at least reasonable and apologized again about what happened. And I apologized that we embarrassed her at dinner. And besides some slightly irreversibly ruffled feathers, I think I've at least smoothed things over with her. My dad is another story. He is stubbornly not talking to me until I apologize to his girlfriend's kids. I made my stance clear that I wouldn't, and if he wanted to act like racism against his kids was okay, then I wouldn't be hanging around him anymore, or, God forbid, bringing my future mixed kids and his future grandkids around. My sister just sent him a text that said, "Have fun with the racists." She's not good at subtlety. Anyway, that's where things are right now. Not a super good ending, but not necessarily a bad ending either. TLDR. Iris apologized for her racist kids without really acknowledging their racism. Dad being a stubborn fool. Second story. Entitled parents adopt me only to treat me like a slave for her golden child daughter and a maid for their house. Restricted me using couch, eat food, forcing me to rub their feet, while their daughter bullies me and labeled me as thief for stealing food out of hunger. Locked me out of the house multiple times as punishment, pushing me to commit self-harm so I better myself, cut them out of my life and moved out at 18. I want to share my abusive childhood experience on TikTok, because it's something that I feel isn't very common or not talked about. But I'm pretty nervous to do so in fear of backlash or no point in posting, so I don't post. But I figured I could get some feedback here where it's anonymous and see others' reactions. Here it goes. I was born in China and was abandoned in a hospital and then sent to the Chinese welfare orphanage right after. Then in 23, I was adopted by a white family who lived in NH. They had one other daughter who was 2 years older than me. Dad is a physician assistant, and mom is a physical therapist. I think immediately I didn't like my adoptive mom. I was very scared of her and absolutely petrified of her growing up. My dad was nice, but my mom ran the household with an iron fist. The first signs that I can remember that were weird were that I would have to ask to use the bathroom in the house, and sometimes my mom would tell me to hold it, and I'd have to wait until she said I could go. I was like 6 years old. One time my mom had me take a nap, and she said to not get out of bed for any reason. And I was so scared to get out of my room that I peed on the carpet, even when the bathroom was 5 paces away from me. This happened one other time when she was drawing me a bath, and I was fully naked, ready to go in. And I asked if I could pee first, and she said not yet, hold it in. And I couldn't and peed all over the bathroom floor. She was furious. She told my dad that night, and he told me to apologize to my mom. And when I did, she just looked at me and walked off. I had food restrictions and could only eat certain foods my mom would provide for me. It was always the same meals every day. Morning Cheerios lunch, peanut butter jelly sandwich dinner. Chef Boyardee called my mom didn't like me using the microwave. I wasn't allowed to eat anything that wasn't handed to me pretty much, which left me very hungry and craving different foods. Mind you, my sister and the rest of the family were eating and cooking whatever they wanted. So I would steal food at a very young age, whether it be at school from kids' backpacks or at home roaming through the pantry, eating my sister's snacks. When my mom found out, she called me a thief and a liar and yelled this at me many times and punished me for it. I was very much controlled. For a good chunk of my childhood, I wasn't allowed to sit on the couch. My mom would say, sit, while pointing her fingers to the ground of the living room. And that's where I'd be while reading a book or coloring. I had a strict TV time, strict bedtime, and was told when I could be in my room and when I was to sit at the kitchen counter and read, draw, or do a puzzle. She would have me rub her feet and, as a reward, either give me fudge at the time or $1. And that made me happy that I was making her happy. One time she let me try this piece of cake, and at first I didn't like it, but she spoon-fed it to me, and I forced myself to like it. And when she asked if I did, I said yes. And she went to the trash can and took out the rest that she had thrown away and gave it to me. She would make me eat cooked octopus and try escargot and tell her friends, Jenna loves food. She will eat anything. Which was true because, at the time, anything that was different from the same meal every day was a win. I didn't know what I was eating and wasn't sure if I liked it. But my mom loved telling stories to her friends, and that would be one of them. My mom would call me a thief and a liar and tell me how much she didn't trust me because I used to steal food and clothes from my sister just to feel somewhat normal. It got to a point where they would lock me out of the house when they weren't home, or if I was at school, I'd have to wait until someone got home to let me inside. It was freezing in NH, especially during the September time frame, so I would always be freezing cold, and usually my dad would be the first one to come home. So I'd rush upstairs to make myself a hot cup of tea. I was scared to get sick or dreaded the days I wouldn't be feeling good because my mom wouldn't care. When I was in elementary school and the school nurse said I needed to go home, my mom picked me up and yelled at me for being sick and her having to pick me up. It happened another time I was sick, and I cried to the school nurses, saying I didn't want to go home, and they didn't understand why. When they told my mom, she was perfectly lovely and was confused as to why I wouldn't want to go home. One weekend night, my parents went out with friends and had me stay out in the garage until they came back home late at night. I wanted to hang myself and let them see what they had done to me. I tried overdosing on ibuprofen one time, and when I told my mom I wasn't feeling good and that I tried to kill myself, she got mad and started yelling at me while I was throwing up. My dad wanted to take me to the hospital to make sure that I was okay, but my mom was telling him no, and they got into a heated argument. My dad did the right thing though and brought me to the hospital. The nurses were going to put me in the psych unit, but my parents told them not to. I honestly wanted to go in because spending a couple days away from them would have been a great escape. My dad was the nice one out of my parents. I used to look up to him heavily, but quickly lost respect as he knew my mom wasn't treating me right, but would do nothing to step in. When I was around 8 years old, there was a running joke between my sister and mom. My sister would ask my mom, "Hey, why does Jenna have a flat face?" My mom would say back, "Oh, she probably got hit with a frying pan back in China." My sister would burst out laughing and purposely ask this question more than once throughout the years. I don't remember what exactly they would say, but I remember always being the topic for conversation during car rides between my mom and sister, usually complaining about something that I did or just was. My mom would take me everywhere she went. She worked at a gym and would have me sit at her classes until she got finished, or take me to work and have me stay there for whole 8-hour work shifts. Many of her friends loved me and said how cute I was, and her response would be, "Oh, if you only knew how she was at home." She would tell her colleagues about me stealing food from kids at school. It was always super embarrassing. They would all say, "No, not Jenna," and she'd be like, "Yup, that's our Jenna." My mom always had a watchful eye on me. She would run into my room looking for anything out of place and go through my school bag. In the morning before school started, I'd have to go downstairs so she could look at my outfit. My mom would have me do most of the chores. I guess you could say in the house, they weren't anything too crazy like clean the bathroom, vacuum kitchen, clean staircases, dust. But I didn't see how it was fair that I was the only one doing them and not my sister. It was like a command of mine I had to do. But for my sister, it wasn't pushed upon her. My mom would even call me Cinderjana, meaning Cinderella, who did all the chores in the house. There would be times we'd go to the mall with my sister, and she would buy my sister all these clothes, and I'd be carrying all the bags, and I'd get nothing. My mom would tell me when I could watch TV with my sister, and I'd go downstairs to watch with her, and she would yell at me, "Why are you here? I don't want you to watch TV with me. Go back upstairs." I'd tell her, "Mom said I could watch TV," and she would go running upstairs to my mom. "I don't want Jenna watching TV with me." My mom would usually say, "Let her watch TV. It's only until she goes to bed." I thought that was nice. She finally had my back. This would happen a couple times. My sister would yell at me because I was in her space. I'd have to deal with a lot of my mom's emotional outbursts on me. And just in general, the way she would talk to me was with no empathy or love. When I had just come to the county, I was in kindergarten, and it was just me and my mother home. And I was asking her a question. And she got irritated with me because I didn't pronounce my words properly. And I started to cry because her tone of voice was scary. And she pinned me to the wall, hands behind my back, and was yelling at me obnoxiously close to my face. When she finally let me go, my hands had turned bluish-purple. She was actually startled and had gotten ice to make it better. Her tone of voice was nicer, and I thought, oh, okay, she does care. But she would still have these random bursts of anger or yell at me for the smallest things. I was forced to eat everything on my plate. One time she and my dad were out for dinner, and it was just me and my sister and the babysitter. And I chose not to eat all of my applesauce. And when I went to bed, a couple hours later I found myself with my mom's hands and fists, clutching my nightshirt in the bathroom, getting screamed at by my mom for not eating my applesauce. I was crying and literally groggy and startled because I didn't even remember getting out of bed. She would always scream at me at the top of her lungs and get right in my face with her stale breath, and I'd be frozen in fear to move. Not sure if she was going to hit me, shove me, or drag me on the floor. I'm just going to cut it short here for now, because there's a lot more, but I'll maybe update it later and finish the rest. But long story short, I left at the age of 18, joined the military, got out, and am now in school getting my psychology degree. I would love to hear people's opinions and thoughts because I still have questions of my own. I'm kind of past the crying stage and more so numb and cool to talk about it to anybody who asks. But I don't bring it up in conversation unless asked. I also want to give some history on my mom to maybe see if anyone might have an idea as to why she would have treated me this way. She was adopted herself from Massachusetts into a Catholic family, her and her adopted brother, and she wasn't a fan of the religion that her mom pushed on them. And later on, her brother, at around age 20, killed himself. She's never said how or why, but I know that has always affected her. She comes from a very wealthy family. She complains a lot about her mom. I feel like she blames her for a lot of things. Her father passed away when she was in her 40s, and I know that was hard on her as well. Third story. I know that my husband is cheating on me with my best friend. But if I leave, he will take half. I am a 40-year-old mother of a baby girl who is 5. I have been married to my husband for 12 years. About 10 years ago, I started my business, and it is my pride and joy. I love my life, and I enjoy my work. 2 years ago, I lost my beautiful mother to breast cancer. It all happened in 5 weeks, and she was so young, 55 years old. It sent me into shock and depression. A short while before that, my best friend found out that her husband cheated, and he left her for his mistress. It was a hard time, and my best friend and I became even closer than ever before. She moved in with me for a while after my mother passed, because I wasn't really functioning, and she was homeless. I started with antidepressants that killed my sexual needs. I felt guilty for my husband, but I really couldn't do anything but try to be healthy again as soon as possible. My best friend lived with us for 1 year, and they started sleeping together towards the end of that year. That's when I got home early and heard them. I ran out in shock. I came back a few hours later, pretending nothing happened. I managed to smoothly find her a place because I couldn't bear it happening in my home. My sanctuary. My happy place is where I live with my daughter. My best friend had already found herself a job, and I took the opportunity to find her an apartment near her job. She was grateful. I was a bit more relieved. The affair is still going on. If I leave, he will take half. It will ruin me and my business, and what I am trying to build for me and my baby. No, I don't want to leave. It is so unfair that he is the one cheating, and I am the one who will pay if I say anything. I refuse, so I am letting it happen. Instead, I wrote him off as my companion and safety blanket. I still have lots to be grateful for. My baby, my family, and my beautiful home, and my business. Most of the time, I am content and happy, even though I myself don't know how I am doing it. Maybe it is numbness or resignation, or maybe it is true contentment. But sometimes, when everything is 100 times magnified, I can barely contain my panic. Especially at night when he wakes me up because I am crying. Again, are you having a nightmare? And he tries to kiss and cuddle me to make me feel safe. I'm here. I'm here. You're safe. I wish I could tell him that my nightmares are my escape from my reality with him, and that his shoulders aren't safe. He rarely asks why I am crying. He probably thinks it is mom, because that's what I tell him. But sometimes I feel like he knows, or that he can't help himself wondering. What's going on behind those eyes? What do you mean? I can't read your face anymore. See, you are silent again. When I look at him, he immediately looks away like he is scared. He would turn into stone and says, I miss you. That's all. My panic has increased more these past few months, since he started paying me attention again. The first period after mom's passing, he never bothered me out of courtesy, I suppose. Never asked for intimacy. Then he had her, so he didn't need me. But now, I don't know what changed. They're still together, so what does he want from me? Is he testing me? I never understood why they're doing what they're doing either. I have seen their texts. There's no love there, no respect, no warmth. Not what I would expect from two people who are sleeping together. Especially not when the stakes are so high. You would think that they love each other so much that they're willing to pay the price in case they're caught. No, there's a lot of anger, fighting, and resentment. A lot of guilt and self-hatred. He calls himself and her disgusting shells of a human being. Is that too some sort of love? I don't know why I am writing here. I googled about infidelity and self-help, and I ended up in this community, and I read tens of similar stories. Maybe I would feel better writing my own down. Please don't think too ill of me. I know that I am pathetic, but I used to have more dignity. Additional information from OP on speaking with a lawyer regarding her assets. I have already talked to a lawyer. I contacted one half an hour after I heard them in my bed. I have discussed many options during the months, and none gives me full control of my life and company. One was a postnuptial agreement, of course, but why would he just sign one? We discussed maybe I confess to him that I know about them, hoping that he would want to do anything to save the marriage, including a postnup. But this is leaving too much to chance, and to someone who could easily cheat on me. But also it doesn't feel right to lure him into signing, then go ahead with divorce anyway. I can't be this malicious. My other option is for one of my family members to buy in. My dad or brother, for example, like 10%. It would leave me with the majority in case of divorce, and I could buy him out eventually. But again, I leave much to chance and no control over the outcome. Mostly I am not looking forward to seeing my husband's real face, which I believe I will when I ask for divorce. If he did this to me when he pretended to love me, then how would he act when he doesn't need to pretend anymore? Do I want my baby to see her parents at their worst this early? Not sure. Maybe I am just obsessing as usual. Relevant comments. Ebcharming 5e326. I'm so sorry. OP. My heart breaks for you. Is there any way you can legally make plans to do something with your assets, business, etc.? While things are amicable, I think it's best to take steps to protect your daughter and the business. I hate to make you think about it, but what if he leaves and you have to do this anyway? Wouldn't edit for spelling you rather be prepared and ready to take on the new adventure that life takes you? Best wishes, sending love. OP. I have talked to an attorney about all my options, and even my best options aren't good enough right now. My only hope is that it comes to a point where I could buy him out when we divorce. It won't happen in a few years. OP on, if her husband is entitled to half of her business. OP actually, he didn't believe in my idea, so he didn't want to help because he was scared that I would lose money. I started with loans and with government assistance for young female entrepreneurs with low interest, so no, he didn't help with anything. Still, he is entitled to half after divorce. Update. Hi everyone. I made a post prior to this a few weeks ago. Thank you for the support and the many suggestions. If you want the details, please read that one first. I promise that I will make this one very short and simple. I have taken 2 measures to protect myself and my daughter when my husband and I get a divorce to protect my assets and my daughter's future. I am sure many will find my methods to be dubious, And honestly, it is fine with me. All's fair in love and war. And this is a bit of both. I told my father everything. He was horrified, but a bit relieved that he finally found out what's been hurting me. We have discussed the possibility that he could buy into my business in case I need to divide, so he and I have the bigger share and still can make the decisions. Then I agreed to my husband's suggestion of seeing a marriage counselor. He talked about my mom's passing and how it affected me and my mentality. He kept talking about me building walls and being distant, and how he was longing for me to come back to him. I just wondered while he talked what he would do if I told him that I knew. Would he still complain about my walls or finally understand them? I opened up about my mom's illness and how it affected me. Not only the losing her part, but the fact that my grandmother and great-grandmother passed the same way. It kept me thinking that I have inherited this and passed it down to my daughter, and the guilt and fear that I have been feeling. I chose to have my daughter fully aware of the risks. What was I thinking? Since the counseling, we have been talking more in our day-to-day, and I just honestly told him that my business was one of the stressors in my life. I am always worried that if I didn't fix our marital issues, and he wanted to leave me, it would change my career in future, while his wouldn't because he is a government employee. This was 2 weeks ago. The day after, he sat me down and told me that he wanted a postnuptial agreement to make me feel more secure. He wanted me to be with him because I wanted to, not because I had to. I talked in my first post about my house, etc. But I really don't care about that anymore. Everything else can be marital property. And honestly, I started to hate this house, and I can't wait to leave it. So the next move is starting the separation. I am aiming for the end of this year, and then only the hardest part is left. Telling my daughter that mommy and daddy won't be living together anymore. I am not looking forward to that part. Relevant comments. Choice intention 926. I'm glad that you reached out to your father for help. It must have been so isolating that the two people you would have gone to for comfort are the two people who were causing you pain. Get the post-nup done ASAP, so you can move on. Once that's done, you can file for divorce. This isn't dubious at all, or it's less dubious than the activity he is engaged in. After your ducks are in a row, you should break it to him in couples counseling that you are divorcing him and what you saw. When he says sorry, you stand firm that he wasn't so sorry that he stopped. He wasn't so sorry that it never started. Not so sorry that at the lowest point in your life, he wouldn't betray you. You deserve better. OP. I will do the best for my mental health and for our daughter. If leaving this behind and not telling him is the best way, then I will just leave it be. I will probably know by then what's best for me. OP on her relationship with her ex-best friend. OP, my ex-best friend and I had a falling out a while back because I don't talk to her anymore, and because I have changed so much. She ended up telling me that I was going to lose everyone that loved me if I stayed that way. Whether they know or suspect something, I don't know. Well, I think this is one of her excuses to herself about why she betrayed me like this. Because I have changed and been pushing away the people that love me towards each other apparently. And honestly, what else can you tell yourself about your SHTTY behaviors to be able to sleep the night? Only I didn't start changing and pushing away people who love me before they betrayed me. OP was asked if her husband and the friend are together. OP, they are still having an affair. I have seen that he still gets text from her at night. Not sure if they still feel like scum. Nothing changed really. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.